Okay, change of hardware. I'm recording this on my laptop right now because my phone is low on battery and I'm too lazy to go and get the charger. So, anyway, why I decided to do this video is because I was cleaning out my computer and then I recalled the one voice note I'd done a long time ago about computers, workstations, general technology that you need to probably want before you come to college, because now that it's the middle of June at the time of recording of this video, I know that a lot of people must be thinking about that sort of stuff because results might be coming in वगैरह वगैरह. तो सोच मैंने सोचा कि ठीक है चलो I'll create a, since I've been adapting a lot of my original voice notes in this current series of videos that I've been putting out into like video form. So let's do this because this is pretty important, and what better way to do it than to do it on the very laptop that I bought. Okay, so to begin with, uh, my so assumptions, disclaimers for this video. Obviously, I'm talking from my own perspective. So if you know better than me, then ठीक है भाई, I'm sorry, जाओ. If you are choosing certain hardware for X reason, maybe I have my own opinions on certain hardware, which you shall find out um, in a couple minutes. But if you choose certain hardware for reasons out of your control, it's okay. I mean, क्या ही करें? Got to deal with what we have. Now, when it comes to selection of hardware, there are also other priorities that you have to keep in mind, which will clash with your gut feeling or what you would want to take in general. So grain of salt, pinch of salt, all that sort of stuff. Get second opinions, look at the stats, and if you've watched my previous videos, please don't go by the hype. Take what you want and what you feel is the best for you. ठीक है? Okay, to start off with, uh, the first thing that I would say when picking up or looking at new devices or new hardware or वगैरह in general is don't don't buy stuff now, specifically if you can help it. Why I say this is because अगर college आके you figure out कि the things that you thought you wanted to do, you either don't have the time or the energy to do, or your requirements have changed. That is, I mean, laptops are expensive nowadays, yeah. I mean, granted, technology has, I mean, laptops have become cheaper. I mean, this one I got for quite a pretty penny, which I'll talk about later. But the same hardware is relatively cheaper, but it's still expensive, yeah. So I can understand why someone would want to think twice before investing in such things. But again, if you can afford to not having to buy something immediately अभी थोड़ा एक दो महीने रुको, come to college wherever you are. I mean, obviously I'm talking about this in the context of Manipal, but this applies to colleges in general, I would like to assume. तो एक दो महीने रुको भाई, कॉलेज को आओ, figure out what it is that you might need, because you internet पे what you read is probably different, and then people will tell you कि oh, you need this, you need that, वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. तो you'll probably figure out what you want to do, what you want to buy based on that. So try not to buy stuff away. On that, to add on to this, like I mentioned, try not to panic buy or impulse buy stuff now. It is okay as long as you have a functioning laptop. पुराना लैपटॉप भी चलेगा, your unless you are some cracked 10x engineer or whatever, in which case this probably doesn't even apply to you because you probably have something else in mind already, in which case you are not the target demographic of this video. If you are not that person, then you are not going to उखाड़ो whatever you want to do in college. कुछ नहीं उखाड़ोगे भाई, सच में. पहले महीने में कुछ नहीं होगा. टाइम पास करोगे रूम में, टाइम पास करोगे, यू विल मीट न्यू फ्रेंड्स वगैरह वगैरह, कुछ नहीं करोगे लैपटॉप पे. आई एम टेलिंग यू. तो इट्स ओके. You don't need to get the best laptop as of this very moment. So it's okay. Get your dad's old laptop if they have one. If you don't have one, then fine. You can get something basic. Don't try to break the bank on your very first purchase. Uh, so get something just to survive that first month or first couple months, and then you figure out what you want to do. Okay, fine. I've gone over this too much. Basically, just don't buy stuff off the rack. Now, please, for the love of God, do not take Apple stuff just because you want to take Apple stuff. I am fucking sick of people buying Apple bullshit. I am saying this as someone that fell into the hype. I was a full Apple user 11th 12th में. मैं फर्स्ट ईयर में आया और मेरी ऐसी लगी ना, because the thing is engineering में you can't do a lot of stuff on macOS. It is not built for engineering, भाई. अगर तुझे सॉलिडवर्क्स कैसे खोलोगे बताओ प्लीज. How the fuck are you going to do OpenCV and all that shit on macOS? And before you get me on started with the whole Linux stuff, can you even do Linux now on the newer Apples? I don't think so. वो Asahi Linux, please, no, nah, that's bullshit. Now, now why I'm so, you know, uh, vehement on why I'm so annoyed by this is because when people talk about the best laptop, this thing, the first option for some goddamn reason is always Apple. And I have my own opinions on Apple, which those who know me all know, which I shall not elaborate on. But point is, Apple MacBooks, Macs, whatever, I will definitely agree. Having used those devices before and being having members of the family of my family that do use those devices day in day out, I will agree. I will admit they are unmatched in some departments, like the UI UX department. When it comes to creative work, when it comes to just like documentation, all that stuff. Um, the ecosystem stuff. If you are an Apple ecosystem, um, I guess a citizen of the Apple ecosystem, unmatched integration. I was trying to sync Windows and my Samsung phone, uh, like couple this thing. So it took a while. It took a whole bloody day for me to get that very little thing for me to work. With Apple, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have even had to think. So I am not just you know I'm not seething just because I'm an anti-Apple person. I agree. uh, I I would like to say that I know my way around technology, so I agree that Apple is good in a lot of areas, but it is not good in the very areas that a lot of engineering applications require. Simply because the softwares that are needed or the type style of hardware that is needed is something that most engineering software companies or etc they just don't bother addressing. SolidWorks, Katia, uh, what are the other simulation softwares? Ansys, Simulia, COMSOL, etc. LT Spice, I guess so, maybe Xilinx, Vivado, kinda. uh, a lot of these softwares that I talked about, which are used in the non CS branches of engineering, they are either available only on Windows or Windows and Linux. You will not find macOS builds of those things. If you do, they are sketchy at best, or at least not official ones. Ignore the softwares that I mentioned if they have macOS stuff. If that works for you, then ignore whatever I said up till this point. But I can guarantee that for the vast majority of people, unless you even for CS people, I will make a case for why you may not need Apple devices even for CS, because a lot of stuff happens on Windows. For the simple reason that Windows is the most accessible operating system. Now, before you Linux fanboys come at me, please, I have used Arch, by the way. So I'm saying this because it is convenient. I won't argue against that. It is convenient. And the thing that Apple does very well, which I do agree is it's actually good for coding, is that because the experience of using the device is so smooth, and because what are the neural engine, etc., etc., you can actually do a lot of pretty cool computer science stuff in it. I've seen people use it. I know people do research on it back at campus. So it's a pretty competent machine for those applications. If you want to like run ML stuff, you want to do this thing, वगैरह वगैरह. What I am rather skeptical about is the price tag, because ठीक है भाई, you do all this. I have no qualms against that. Would you want to do all that for 2 lakhs? I don't know, yaar. Especially considering the fact that outside of those other use cases, there's not a lot that you can do. Gaming, I mean, you know what engineering students like to do when it comes to gaming. Sail the high seas and all that, which I won't mention here. But you can't do that on Mac OS. When it comes to, I mean, if you have Microsoft Office का I mean, you might, because if you're part of an educational institution, you'd get access to Microsoft Office and all that. Overall, like transferring stuff is a bit of a pain. Having your MacBook interface with anything that is not a MacBook, not Apple related, can also be sort of a pain. Transferring files here and there. वो थोड़ा, because Apple tends to have like different file systems and this thing. वो flash drives को share करना becomes a bit of a pain. I know this because I had an Apple MacBook Air. I think when was this? 2018. So I think I had a 2016 something उस time का MacBook Air, and I got it to college. I don't know how I managed the first semester, but I could clearly see that it is not helping me out. And so I had to scramble to find an old Windows laptop from back home, and so I used that until I believe the third semester, and after which I bought a normal HP laptop. But yeah, I'll get to that point. But the point is, if you want a MacBook for the brand, I don't know what else to tell you, bro. Like, go eat crayons, I guess. But please be aware that there are certain trade-offs of having a MacBook, which functional trade-offs, which you must be aware of if you want to buy a MacBook, or else your life is going to be hell, no matter what you do. I'm talking about even the CS wali people. Yes. Now, uh, when it comes to low-cost notebooks, when I say notebook, I mean like laptop, not like book. So I know that there are people that just want to, like, people will come to me, and I'm saying this from experience because people have asked me these questions. People will come to me and say कि भैया मुझे ये कोडिंग करना है, वेब डेव करना है, वगैरह वगैरह, एप्पल मैकबुक चलेगा क्या? भाई साहब, क्रोमबुक भी चलेगा. You don't need to buy a 1 lakh का machine for that shit. Normal सा i3 i5 लो चुपचाप, save that 60 70 80K that you will be that you would have spent or splurged on that one MacBook. हो जाएगा तेरा पूरा engineering हो जाएगा. I am telling you, I've seen people do more stuff with less. So don't think that your hardware is going to limit you based on those applications. Like I mentioned again, there are certain things where obviously you need specialized hardware, but I would argue that at least for a first year of college, when you still are trying to figure out what it is that you want to specialize in, try not to invest in hardware of that caliber right now. Once you know what you want to do and you know that you will be using said device for at least 5 to 8 years, then invest. Okay, don't do it now. Now when I say now I said the statement key when you're trying to figure out don't buy something, but obviously you need some sort of hardware. So this is what I would recommend. When you are trying to look at a laptop, like if like I mentioned, first try to survive with um, existing stuff. Now that you kind of understood ki theek hai bhai, this is the sort of stuff that I want to explore in college. Let's say, I mean, I love gaming, so I knew for a fact ki थोड़ा तो भी I need to be able to game. So basic GPU तो I need to have. I also knew that I wanted to do some CAD work. I want to do some programming related stuff, maybe explore some AI. So I should be able to have a normal SaaS system that can do all two, three things competently. Another friend of mine had zero interest in AI, so he didn't give a shit about that. Someone was fully invested in AI. He really wanted to do that. He had no interest in like gaming or all that stuff. So here are these three different variants. I would say typical all rounder, one skewed to one side, one skewed to another side. Now, for most people, would probably be in this camp where they just want to try a little bit of everything and want something that can at least last them those 4 years, maybe in 5 years if they want to push it even further. So I'd say that depending on how heavy you think your requirement is, even 50 to 60,000. um, I mean, I will speak. I'm not going to. HP isn't sponsoring this video, but I've used a lot of HP laptops all my life, so that's what what I can, what I'm familiar with. So you can take the Dell equivalent, the Lenovo equivalent, whatever Acer. I don't remember what other laptop companies do stuff nowadays, but think about it in that way. So HP Pavilion का you get this one कुछ तो series, a student वाला series, where the specs I kind of remember. At the time it was some i5. I think it was an eighth gen. Like okay, it was uh, it was an i5 something. It had an Nvidia GPU, pretty basic. I think the media class of what 250M or something, which is like an entry level GPU. Like it could do something. It was okay, not too shabby. I guess you could call it the equivalent to a GTX 1050. I don't quite remember. I think it was a like 150M, 250M. I don't know what the media class is. What GPU tha? 8 gigs or something of RAM, which I later upgraded to 16 for quality of life improvement. Yeah, that is something that you will have to have as a deal breaker. Like 16 to chahiye rahega. And 256 or 512 gigs of ROM, which I felt was, I think 256 was what I'd taken. Good enough. It lasted me like second year मैंने लिया, किया third year में मैंने किया. It's still at home. It like people are using it at home, so it's still there. It's still doing its job. But that was what carried me through my second year and third year. Whatever stuff I did on Rost, the SolidWorks stuff I did, Fusion, भगवान जाने मैंने कैसे किया उसके ऊपर, but मैंने kind of somewhat किया. It survived. It was good. I was satisfied with it. I was able to explore everything that I wanted to do. Now, obviously, gaming. I mean, I didn't do much, truth be told. But if someone is interested in that stuff, then I can understand why they would want to take a dedicated gaming laptop. In which case, I would say that try to limit your budget to keep it thoda cheap, please. You don't need that top of the line 4090 whatever bullshit. At that point, bro, please get a mini ITX tower and get lug that entire setup everywhere you go. You have no business carrying utna powerful laptop which is going to weigh a ton, is going to spit out a ton of heat. साला आधा global warming तो वही laptop से आएगा. And for what? Just for a couple more FPS in XYZ game that you're playing Valorant में. So try to yeah, I would say कि the 20 series वगैरह whatever that you can get at a budget that you can use to competently do bunch of stuff, वो हो जाएगा. So I'll talk about gaming का context first, but then I'll go over the others. Gaming का context में, let's say you want to figure out whether laptop is good or whether GPU is good. So like don't go. I would say ideally try not going by laptop, try going by specs. Because if say you know it, you want to play certain games, then look up GPU benchmarks of those games, and you see कि ठीक है fine 2050 कुछ तो performs at XYZ FPS on Horizon Zero Dawn, for example, and you want to play Horizon Zero Dawn, so okay, you need a laptop that has a 2050 M, the mobile version, and उसके हिसाब से you see what you want. So like वैसे start matching you can do. Don't try to see कि ROG sticks etc. I have ये laptop में मुझे दिख रहा है 60K में, now what I can do with this. So you try to reverse the thing. Similarly, SolidWorks, things like SolidWorks, CAD software, AI, etc. These guys have certain requirements. For AI, no, definitely needs VRAM, and obviously RAM. If you're doing MATLAB, mathematical modeling, any sort of like intensive processing work, processor needs to be decent, and you need RAM. And CAD is a bit of a mixed bag. You need a decent as GPU, you need decent as CPU, you need a decent enough RAM to hold all those parts together. Because like when you get to like 100 200 parts, it does get a bit annoying. Um, all that sort of stuff. Now, how do you manage all this? I would say, like I mentioned before, your typical normal student media, multimedia tier laptop is probably capable enough of doing most of the stuff that you want to do when you're exploring. And if you want to get a beefier system, then sure, go for the gaming laptop. Now, let's say you've bought, let's say I don't quite remember the prices off the top of my head, but I remember the last time I checked all these things, you could get decent-ish laptops for like 60K, 60, 70K, chalo, 70K. I guess you could have gotten like a normal 80K, chalo. If I want to push it even further, you'll get something. It will be good. It will last you those 4 years for sure with good care. I'll talk about other things such as, look at the build quality, all that stuff later, but bear with me. So 80K you spent. Um, you will use it all those 2, 3, 4 years, whatever. Now, and it will last you at least 4, 5 years. Now, and this is where I start shilling workstations. The thing about laptops or hardware like this is that if you know you want hardware that lasts, the issue is consumer hardware most of the time doesn't cut it for planned obsolescence reasons, for corner cutting reasons, for the simple for fast for consumerism reasons, bunch of other different aspects. So that RG whatever laptop that you buy or that Lenovo Legion that you buy, it'll probably start throwing tantrums in like 3, 4 years. But by that time you'll be like, take away, I'll buy another laptop. But then I would say that there is another overhead to take by I spent one lakh on this Legion or whatever. I think at the time it was like 1 lakh something. And then I spent another lakh on another laptop and uska waste generate ho gaya, and then I have to transfer all that shit, and other again iska kuch to build quality ka issue hua, तो then what the hell do I do? Bunch of other moving parts I had to take care of. What I did was I knew what I wanted to do, which was I wanted a decent CAD, I wanted decent modeling, and I wanted competent, I wanted systems that are rated for the types of industrial softwares that I knew that I wanted to work with. So what I did was I went on their websites and I saw what their recommended requirements were. And then I saw a bunch of things. They started mentioning stuff like Quadros and Xeons. I was like, bro, what the hell is all this? Which remind me, me at the time wasn't necessarily computer savvy. Like I knew that computer was a thing and I could do stuff on it, but I wasn't really into the whole CPU, GPU, NVIDIA, AMD, all that stuff. So for me, this was new uncharted territory for me. So then, obviously, me being me, I read up on all that stuff, and obviously, I had friends that were in that scene, so they were helpful enough to also allow me to learn a bunch of those terms by osmosis. And so I arrived at this thing called workstations, or essentially the enterprise sector. So, like I mentioned before, you have consumer laptops, so your gaming, multimedia, student, home, etc., etc. Those are consumer sector laptops. To those of you who may have parents that work in corporate, you may be familiar with the company issued laptop. Or like you'll get your Lenovo's, you'll get your Dell's, you'll get your this thing, ठीक है? तो उसको enterprise sector बोलते हैं, और basically like business class or business laptops, or engineering laptops. So these laptops or new workstations, the enterprise sector laptops, these are quite different from consumer laptops because the nature of the sector, the enterprise sector, is when a company buys those laptops, they will keep it for 10 years, 15 years. Like you'll see the same laptop that was released in like 2005 in 2025, and it probably must be running the same old as software, but it'll work beautifully without a hitch. I guarantee you that. I know for a fact that I mean, I'm using a mobile workstation right now. Like I'm doing this on an HP ZBook. I have people I know people who've also gone and got mobile workstations. I have a relative of mine who's been using a Dell, I think Latitude, like whatever the workstation class is for the Dells, since 2007. It works pretty fine. All he had to do was like an SSD upgrade, and it runs their architecture, etc. software pretty good. So basically, the point I'm trying to make here is, these enterprise sector devices are built to last. Simply because companies don't want to waste money, so they'll get all this stuff. Yep. So there are a bunch of differences between consumer and this. एक तो build quality is pretty good. So a lot of these consumer laptops I know have had issues with plastic chassis, which is thoda thermally non-conductive वगैरह. A lot of these workstations will either be metal chassis or a very well maintained uh, non-metal chassis. Like Lenovo ThinkPad, I know is one of the goats in this area. Like bro, ThinkPad is like chef's kiss. The ZBook is pretty competent as well. The Latitude, I believe, is the name. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, for purpose of this video, let's just assume the Latitude is the workstation class. So you will have equivalent workstation class laptops or if enterprise class laptops for every company. And like I mentioned, build quality is there. There's also this thing called, I mean, to my knowledge, I mean, that's what they do. I assume they do it. There's this thing called the silicon lottery. So for those that are familiar with semiconductor stuff like chip manufacturing, okay, obviously you got to put transistors and stuff on silicon. So the purity of the silicon kind of matters. So most of these workstation class laptops are arguably have arguably better chips, purer chips. Like even if you have i7s or your Xeons, like Xeons and all your server grade CPUs and stuff. I mean, I have an i5, so I'm pretty sure it's a consumer one, but most of the time, basically, their quality control is good because obviously you have to use it for a long time. The quality control is good, build quality is good. Service life is a big benefit. These guys have warranties in the like 3 4 year wala warranty. Like my thing, I bought this thing when I think 22 perhaps, yeah, and the factory warranty ended I think this year, like 3 years. I mean, you'd be lucky to get a consumer laptop with maybe more than a year's warranty, to my knowledge. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure a lot of consumer laptops don't necessarily have warranties lasting more than maybe 1 or 2 years, but these guys are like three minimum. And that's not to mention the service life, which is at least 10 to 15 years. Okay, so so as you can see, there are clear benefits to having these things. Oh, another thing, because these are enterprise class devices, their entire supply chain is different. Their entire service chain is different. I know for a fact that I because I've had HP consumer devices, I've had HP enterprise devices. So regardless of whatever HP, whatever, I would say कि ठीक है, controlling for variants, I am dealing with the consumer supply chain and dealing with enterprise supply chain. Consumer supply chain में bro, I had एक तो I had battery issues with the thing. I had the plastic chassis was thoda flimsy. I could feel it really flexing in my hand. Or when the battery started draining, the health started going down, which I mean was partly my own skill issue, but point is it started draining quite quickly. Yeah, I mean I know I've cycled this guy a bit harshly, but this guy is pretty good. Uh, the other pavilion didn't fare so well. Anyway, I put in a request. हफ्तों हफ्तों तक कुछ नहीं आया. I called the call center, कुछ नहीं आया वगैरह. End में I was like, fuck it bro, I'll take it to some random computer repair करने वाला. By the time warranty had also disappeared, तो like क्या ही करूँ मैं. So I went and got it done somehow. I don't even remember how I got it done in the end, but yeah, it was a bad experience with service. I'm not not saying it's just for HP. This is something I know. I know people who have Asus laptops or have Lenovo Legion like laptops. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, the bill quality, the shitty service, etc. etc. It's a common consumer thing. I don't know what it is. Um, so that's the consumer thing. With the enterprise class, so I wanted to replace the keyboard because for those that don't know, I like to use Dvorak, and so I like to switch the keys around. And I think over time, I think some of the switches had gotten loose, and unfortunately, I couldn't find individual switches at the time. So I figured, ki, why the hell not? Let's just use the factory warranty that I have right now, which so apparently replacing keyboards was covered under warranty, which is also pretty cool. These their warranties are pretty more extensive than consumer ones. So I decided to change my keyboard. तो मैंने support request डाली on that HP support assistant. This is the same as the consumer वाला. With so I did that on Monday. Tuesday को I got a call from the call center. First, oh, fun fact. While they were calling, they asked me what company I was working for. So I was like, no, brah, this is a personal device. So you can see they are already imagining that you're from a company. So this is the this is the style of device that they are kind of dealing with. Uh, so I said that's a personal purchase. He's like, okay, and then we verified that I wanted to change the keyboard. He's like, okay, within the week we'll get it done. I'm like, wow, bhai, within the week I'll get it done. So this happened Tuesday afternoon, I believe. Wednesday को service center guy calls saying कि भाई साहब, where is your house? I will come and do your service. So I'm like, wow भाई, bros coming to my house and stuff. The consumer वाले को I had to really go all the way to the service center to do it. Now don't get me wrong, pretty sure there are home you know repair services for it, but that's just from my experience, so must be biased. Anyway, pinch of salt. The guy is coming to my house to do it. Thursday ko he came. I think that guy was he didn't have the particular. I think he just came to take a look at the laptop physically. Thursday ko kiya. I think then he set up a meeting for tomorrow. Friday ko done. Fully he came, replaced everything, वगैरह वगैरह. We tested it, all worked well. Fully done. So Monday to Friday, I got it fully done and dusted, completed ticket, 5-star review, sub हो गया. And so obviously while I was talking to the guy, Thursday, Friday को, I asked them कि like what's your setup like? So he said कि oh, so we are a service center that caters specifically for companies and enterprise devices because ये सब है enterprise वाले class. So that's what clued me into the whole um, service supply chain वाला aspect. And I asked him, you have इनके service life रहता है 10-15 साल, तो because they are fully trained, they're trained separately from the consumer guys, all that stuff. So this got me thinking कि bro, everyone should bloody buy this stuff. I mean, serious engineers that want devices that last for a while, because I shield all this stuff. ठीक है? Let's come to how much you have to pay for this. So the specs for this laptop for comparison. This was an i5 10750H, I believe. Quadro T1000M, which is the equivalent to GT 1650 or something. Yeah, I think that was what I remember seeing on Tom's hardware the other day. 16 gigs of RAM, 1 TB SSD. Windows 10 Pro came with the thing, all that stuff. Okay, everything is fucking soldered to the motherboard. I can't change the RAM. 16 gigs of RAM is going to remain 16 gigs of RAM. I can't do anything about that. There's nothing swappable. The only thing I can change in this device is the SSD. Nothing can be changed. So that is one drawback. The second drawback, which is arguably the biggest drawback, for these specs, if I were to buy a gaming laptop with better specs than this at 80K, 1 lakh, I had to pay 2.5 lakhs for this. Now you understand where the money goes. This is the enterprise premium that you have to pay. So I, I, I was so it's still really funny to me because at the time, like, I was so pissed with the whole this thing. And so obviously, obviously we spoke to a bunch of people, um, and then we also were like, bro, what the hell, 2.5 lakhs, this better be worth its money. But I am happy to report that 3 years later, 4 years later, it is worth its money, worth every single bloody rupee of it. God knows what I put this poor guy through, and this baby has survived every single thing. It's working pretty well. I cleaned the computer a couple times. If I did some random crypto mining bullshit on this, just to see what the first. This was back in like what 2021 or something. Uh, I run games kind of decently. I mean, obviously, not graphics aren't anything to die for, but it's serviceable. All that for 2.5 lakhs, which is like, bro, 2.5 lakhs. But if you think of it the other way, 2.5 lakhs for at for 10 years or 15 years, single device, not much hassle when it comes to service, etc., etc. चाहिए तो obviously, care pack if you want to buy all the stuff, agree. But I'd say that even without that, whatever you'd want to pay would be decent compared to consumer sector, where you would cycle through one laptop every 5 years. Each of those, if you want the same performance, like एक lakh डालोगे, not to mention all the other things. So it works out to be the same thing now. You either spend 2 lakhs for two laptops plus headache, or you spend 2.5 lakhs for this thing, and you're set for the same amount of time. So to me, as someone that does work in serious engineering or that requires these sorts of things, it's a fair game. It's a fair deal. Oh, also another thing. The thing about these enterprise laptops is, oh, and this is for the creatives out there, the creative people, the industrial valley people, companies work with OEMs. So the software people, the hardware people, and the chip people, they come together and they create these specific drivers and these specific software setups for these enterprise class laptops that are specially optimized for the specific type of hardware that these enterprise devices have, because like I mentioned before, their configurations are fixed, so they know कि i5 ही रहेगा, quarter T1000 ही रहेगा, 16 gig RAM ही रहेगा. तो they are able to create a perfectly optimized build of SolidWorks for that, with perfectly optimized quadro drivers for it. You won't find this anywhere in consumer sector. So, I mean, I would say, argue कि it's not particularly relevant to our use case specifically, but I just want to give you an idea of the care that goes into these sort of devices, which in my opinion, it justifies the price. Like this is an enterprise premium that we are paying for, which I personally am okay with, because I know I'm going to use this for the next 5-10 years. I don't think I'll ever the next device I probably buy is probably going to be a desktop. Like, this is how confident I am in the capability of this thing to like survive. We'll see how things go. Um, so yeah, that is I basically just shilled workstation for this thing. But so now obviously this is a big investment, right? So now how do you decide in the end ki what to take? So basically, work with what you have. What first year may, depending on what you want to try to explore, try to take something cost effective, or try not to break the bank on devices that, like we discussed earlier, may not last as long as you think they should last, considering the money you paid for it. If you pay 2 lakhs for a 4090 whatever this thing, or 1.5 etc., and then it breaks like 3 years, like, bro, why? So it's okay, no one's going to give a shit. कोई औकात में ये नहीं आता कि bro, this idiot has a 2050 or whatever. Please, if they do that, they are not the sort of friends you should be dealing with anyway. Take a nice decentish laptop that is serviceable, gets you through those 4 years, but is beefy enough to allow you to explore all these different aspects, and allows you to kind of play around with the hardware too if you wish. Maybe swap out the RAM, increase the SSD, see what things look like. Get more comfortable with your laptop in general, like dealing with what stuff happens in your laptop and stuff. And once you know what you want to do at that time, then you can probably invest in a more resilient and long lasting piece of hardware, which could be a mobile workstation. It could be that you somehow managed to get this laptop going all this while, and you think to yourself, "Okay, theek hai bhai, it's okay. This will work for my use case." You can use that money in a desktop, like a good beefy desktop that allows you to do all the stuff you dreamt of doing. So I'm just making a case for ensuring that you don't unnecessarily dive head first into all this. I want to buy a Mac because everyone's buying a Mac and it's the cool thing, bro. No one's going to give a shit after the second year when all your software will stop working and you won't be able to do anything because this 1 lakh piece of metal that you bought from Apple with literally zero fans in it. If it's those who know, like, why? So yeah, and when it comes to so this is I've been talking about laptops all this while. Again, when it comes to other piece of hardware, so phones, iPads, etc. Again, figure out your use case. Do you really need that piece of hardware? What are you going to do with that iPad aside from taking notes? Time pass hi na. So like there are other ways to do it. There are other ways. This thing is already way too long of a video, so I'm not going to elaborate on all that stuff. But because this video is primarily about laptops, but figure out what it is that you want to do after you come to college with the basic hardware that you have. Get something that helps you explore those things while not totally going all out, and see how far you can take that hardware. And then when you know that you want to commit to a thing, take the most specialized hardware that you can. If you want to commit to video editing and creative work and okay, go take that Apple. Take the top end Apple model, the highest end model that you can get. Spend on that money because a worker values their tools. A craftsman values their tools. So pick the best tool for the job, but you need to know what job you're even buying those tools for. So figure that out, get the best tools for the job, and use them well. So yeah, that's it.